So then guys, very recently we've had the announcement of the brand new iPhone 16e. Some of you guys love it, some of you guys hate it. But the big question is, how does it compare to, say, other sorts of budget type of flagship phones, and even if that's a category out there, from sort of leading brands? So for example, today I've got the Pixel 8a. Now I know the 9a is around the corner, but at the time, of the 16e's release, we've only got the 8a at the moment. So how does the iPhone 16e compare to the 8a? Well, today we're going to do a versus situation. We're going to do the iPhone 16e versus the Pixel 8a in a review of specs to see what differences we've got here, especially that the Pixel 8a costs $100 less than the iPhone 16e. So let's take a look then at these charts. So on the left side, we have the Pixel 8a, and then we'll have the iPhone 16e on the right for the rest of this comparison. And with that, let's get started. Now, first of all, both of these phones actually have OLED technology and OLED XDR technology inside of it, but the screens are quite different. All I'd say is that literally the OLED and the XDR bit is the same, but as you'll see as we go further on, they're a bit different. But just take note of them that they are both OLED. They're not like a mini LED or just standard LED. This is what the type of technology that they use. And both of them actually are 6.1 inches big. So you'll get around exactly the same sort of screen. Obviously, I said the Pixel's a little bit more rounded on the edges, I'd say, compared to the iPhone 16e. And obviously, you don't have things like the notch, but you do have the camera punch hole on the 8a. But really, from the actual look of them, there isn't that much difference in that, to be deadly honest. Then for the actual screen resolution, now there is a difference here. So this is where it gets a little bit crazy, that the Pixel 8a does have its aspect ratio as 20:9, and the iPhone 16 has a 19:5:9. But look at the resolution difference. The Pixel 8a is technically a 1080 display. Look at this, it's 1080 by 2400. So if you turned your phone sideways and you had it kind of the horizontal lines, that's how like TVs are measured, you're getting a 1080p display, whereas the iPhone 16e is way higher here. It's actually 1170 by 2532, so definitely there is an improvement there. And just in case you're wanting to know what that means and kind of the maths of pixels per inch, well, the Google Pixel 8a actually gives us 430 pixels per inch, or 430 ppi, compared to the iPhone 16e, what is 458. Well, actually, it's about 460 Apple claiming on their website, but technically, if you did the maths, it's actually 458 pixels per inch. So the iPhone 16 is a little bit more of a sharper display when you actually just look at it straight on with, say, a still picture. But what I think will make a big difference is the next thing, and that is actually the display refresh rate. The Pixel 8a are like many other budget phones around this kind of sort of price. They actually offer 120 hertz display, or even say a 90 hertz display at the very least, whereas iPhone 16e still just has the old 60 hertz that we have had ever since, say, probably the very first iPhone, to be honest, that kind of display refresh rate. No updates whatsoever on the baseline version, nothing here on the iPhone 16e. So yeah, the Pixel 8a is definitely ahead here in that. And it's also the same for the screen brightness. The Pixel 8a for its HDR viewing can actually go up to 2000 nits, whereas the iPhone 16e can only go up to 1200 nits. So outside on a bright day, you would actually probably see your Pixel 8a a little better than on an iPhone 16e. But then moving over to the processor and the CPU, well, both of these phones actually have homemade chips put inside of them, or more the fact that the actual engineers at these places have actually sort of architected the chips and not borrowed one and stuck it in their phone. So the Pixel 8a actually has the Google Tensor 3, and this is a 9-core CPU and also has a 7-core GPU. And the iPhone 16e has a 6-core CPU and a 4-core GPU. It's actually a binned version of the A18, what normally has 5 cores. There's also the 16-core Neural. I couldn't find the information for the Tensor 3 for its neural kind of engine NPU sort of cores on that one. Now you'd think realistically that obviously the Pixel 8a is going to be way ahead here, especially it's got more cores. But if I flick over now to the Geekbench CPU benchmark, well, this is where things get a little bit odd. The Pixel 8a only has a single core score of 1533 and a multi-core performance of 3884, And then the iPhone 16e, well, look at this. It has 3,316 single core and multi-core performance is 8,154. The single core performance in the iPhone 16e is just behind the multi-core performance in the Pixel 8a, which is just ridiculous, really. And the single core performance in the 8a is more than half the amount. It's about 40% of the speed of the single core speed we get in the iPhone 16e. And do remember with the iPhone 16e, with that multi-core performance, the 8154, that's around about the speed of the M1 chipset that came out in the MacBook Air, the Mac Mini, the iPad Pro, and there was a few other devices too, but that is crazy that we've got that inside this little phone here. But just in case you want to know about RAM amounts, well, they both actually have the same type of RAM, and they both got exactly the same amount. They both got 8 gigabytes of RAM inside of them, so this is definitely useful for multitasking and things like this. But then moving on to storage option, the actual Pixel 8a comes with 128 gigabytes and 256 gigabytes, whereas the iPhone 16e comes with 128, 256 and 512. And personally, I think the iPhone 16e shouldn't offer the 512. That's just my thinking here. If Apple are trying to sell this as kind of like a budget sort of phone, I really don't get why you'd buy this at 512 when, you could you'd probably go and buy yourself a normal iPhone 16 at the very least with 512 instead here. So yeah, that's just me. It's going to be interesting to see how many Apple will ship of the iPhone 16e with 512 gigabytes at full price. But then for operating system, well, we both had two very different setups here. We have Android 15 in the Pixel 8a, and we've got, going to get updates for the next sort of 6 years with that from Google. It's really good news to hear. Whereas the iPhone 16e does have iOS 18, the same sort of thing. It'll probably get 6 to 7 operating system updates. So really they're going to be kind of neck and neck here. Maybe, the iPhone might trump it by an extra year, but not much. We'll have to just wait and see on that one. But then moving on from this, for battery life, this is quite interesting that they're very close. So the Pixel 8a, if you were to watch a video locally on the phone and you weren't streaming it or anything like that, then you would actually get up to 24 hours battery life. And if you had the same sort of conditions of sound, brightness, things like this on the iPhone 16e and did the exact same test, just running it on the same app, running it on the same sort of resolution and so on, all built into the phone, you get up to 26 hours of battery life. So the iPhone 16 is a little bit ahead here on paper. And just in case you want to know what the actual battery sizes are, well, this is where it gets interesting because the Pixel 8a actually has a 4,492 milliamp, almost a 4,500 milliamp, whereas the iPhone 16e has the older battery from the iPhone 14, but we think it might be modified slightly to be a new type of battery, one of those new carbon type of batteries, but this is at 3,279 milliamps at the moment. We'll have to confirm, obviously, this is the exact battery size, but this is what we know at the moment. So yeah, do stay tuned that this could change. But the interesting thing is obviously I just spoke about the battery life and that the actual iPhone 16e is ahead of the Pixel 8a, even though the 8a has a bigger battery. I think one of the main reasons is all to do with that new C1 chip for cellular, for 5G, what's really helping out the 16e. But then moving over to wired and wireless charging, this is where it's interesting again that the iPhone 16e, in my opinion, is actually ahead here. The Pixel 8a has USB-C up to 18 watts of charging here. It's the maximum. Also has wireless charging at 7.5 watts, but the iPhone 16e, if you plugged it in by USB-C, you can actually go up to 27 watts, so a little bit more there. And obviously with a smaller battery too, it's more than likely the 16e will charge up faster than with the Pixel 8a, what was obviously charging at a lower amount and also has a bigger battery inside. But for wireless capabilities, they're exactly the same. No such thing as MagSafe or anything like that. So yeah, we're only getting 7.5 watts here for both of these. For weight-wise though, the Pixel 8a is a little bit heavier than the iPhone 16e. Maybe it's because of that extra bar on the back and maybe that extra camera sensor, who knows? But it's 189 grams compared to 167 grams. So, we are talking just over sort of 20 grams here. And I would say if you felt that in your hand, you might begin to feel a little bit of the difference between them, that the Pixel 8a is a little bit more heavier than the iPhone 16e. But obviously it's not going to be hugely heavy. That's what I'm going to say there. Obviously, you've got to remember like the Pro Maxes of phones, they were like 240 sort of grams and things like this. So yeah, just be aware of that. For water resistance, the Pixel 8a does have IP67. There's nothing wrong with IP67. It just means it can only go up to 2 meters of water depth in clear water, up to 30 minutes, whereas IP68 can actually go down to 6 meters up to 30 minutes in clear water. So obviously, if you drop it in the sea or something like this, the results are going to be different here. For ports wise though, both of them have USB-C ports at the bottom of them, and both of them actually charge at different speeds, and like I said earlier, but the USB-C on the iPhone 16e is actually USB 2.0, whereas the Pixel 8a actually has USB 3.2 speeds coming out of it. So if you do want to transfer files onto your phone or off your phone, it's going to be quicker on the Pixel 8a. And then for artificial intelligence, both of these phones offer this. So with the Pixel 8a, you get Gemini, and then also with Apple, you get Apple Intelligence. Now, the odd thing is then obviously with artificial intelligence, both Android and both Apple like to do drop features. So throughout the year, you're getting more and more updates coming along to your phone. Personally, what I would be saying in my opinion right now, I'd actually say Gemini is probably better with all the features that you get there compared to Apple Intelligence, mainly because Apple Intelligence hasn't fully rolled out yet. There's still a few 1 or 2 bits left. Maybe when we get to Android 16, you know, the 8a will be able to run, and also when we get to iOS 19, things will look a bit different, and maybe the Apple will catch up quite a bit, or maybe even overtake. So we'll just have to wait and see on that one. But then for Bluetooth technology, both of these phones have got exactly the same with Bluetooth 5.3, so no differences there with that connectivity. But then for Wi-Fi, the Pixel 8a does have Wi-Fi 6E in it. It was quite good for a budget phone. Obviously, I wasn't expecting it to have 7. And then the iPhone 16e only has Wi-Fi 6 inside of it, so a generation behind that. But then moving on to the actual rear cameras, this is where things are very different. Now, personally, if you're going to pick up these phones for the camera abilities, I think you know which one I would pick. The Pixel 8a has a 64 megapixel wide sensor, whereas the iPhone 16e has a 48 megapixel wide. Then we have a 13 megapixel ultra wide on the Pixel 8a, but we do not have any ultra wide on the iPhone 16e. Both can record up to 4K video, but what I would also say with these rear cameras, when you take videos, when you take camera shots and things like this, generally speaking, the Pixel does it better. You get better pictures, sharper pictures compared to the iPhone 16e. That is going to be my opinion there, compared to even just looking at an iPhone 16 normal. But obviously, we just have one camera. So I would personally going to say that the Pixel 8a is probably going to win out on this one if you're just after cameras. But then for the actual selfie cameras, things are different again. The Pixel 8a has a 13 megapixel front facing, and the iPhone 16e has a 12 megapixel front facing. Both these cameras, they're not the newest ones out there. Obviously, I'd say the one on the iPhone 16e has been out for about 4 or 5 generations. That's the same camera we had in the iPhone 12, believe it or not, on the front. Whereas the 8a one, the 13 megapixel, has been out for about 2 or 3 years now. So yeah, just be aware of that. But then finally, down to the price. And this is where it gets interesting. The Pixel 8a starts at $499 US, whereas the iPhone 16e starts at $599 US. Personally, with the Pixel 8a, if it had a better chip inside it, if it was more faster, more, better, kind of getting up to the speeds of, say, a Qualcomm Snapdragon, I would say it'd be worthy of that $499 US price mark. But because of that chip being slower, and obviously that Google expecting that to last another 6 years, I would personally say this should be about $429. And then the iPhone 16e, I've already said this, it should be worth about $499 US, but they're not. That's the main thing. So you can see here the price difference, but they do both offer the base models at 128 gigabytes. But with that then, which smartphone will you be picking? Now, when the Pixel 8a came out at $499, everybody was shocked at that price and just didn't understand. And people going, well, you might as well buy yourself a normal Pixel 8. And it seems like Apple have taken the same strategy here. They brought out the iPhone 16e at $599, and people going, well, you might as well just pay $200 more and get the iPhone 16. Maybe this is just Google and Apple just being clever to trying to upsell us here. Maybe it's not the case. Personally, I think the Pixel 8a should be worth $429, like I said. And also, I think a lot of you would agree with me here that the iPhone 16e should be $499 US. But like I said, they're not, sadly. But it does show the difference. And like I said, personally, I think this phone, the Pixel, is a better phone if you're not after the ecosystem and you really do not care about the actual speed of the chip, and you're only going to keep it for a few years. Like I said before, I really cannot see this lasting 6 years with this type of CPU, this processor inside of it. It's going to get slow and cloggy with Androids, going into the future. It's going to be running like Android 20 in the future. I just cannot see that running well on this phone. Whereas with the A18, I can actually see that we're going to be on iOS like 23, 24, whatever, and it will still be running quite well for what it is. That's the difference what I see there. But like I said, if you're only going to keep it for 2 or 3 years, then I would probably be picking the Pixel 8a. But that is just my opinion on that. But what are your opinions on this? Which one would you pick out of these two? Or would you pick maybe one of their older siblings like the Pixel, 8 or even the Pixel 9, to be deadly honest? And then also, would you be picking yourself an iPhone 16 normal, maybe even waiting out for the 17 to come out in around about 6 or plus months or so? Well, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And with that as well, guys, it's time to wrap up the video too. So if you have enjoyed watching it, please do press the like button. And if you want to hear the latest Apple news, reviews and comparisons like we've done today, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. Until next time, guys, I'll see you really soon. Take care. Bye bye.